Spirit always has me say things for a reason. Spirit gives messages to people on what we need, not what we want.
Yeah. So what happens is a lot of times when souls, when they first start to communicate with me, they make me feel like the bond that they shared with the person, but a lot of times they'll just bring me through the departure. They'll make me feel what they felt as the soul left the physical body.
A lot of times when souls, when they first start to communicate with me, they make me feel like the bond that they shared with the person, but a lot of times they'll just bring me through the departure. They'll make me feel what they felt as the soul left the physical body. Millions of people cried in front of their TV screens, believing they were witnessing a true miracle through Theresa Caputo. But today, those same tears have turned to outrage, with many calling her the biggest fraud in reality television. The story of the Long Island psychic is a dramatic journey, from the height of fame with her dominant TLC show and sold-out tours, to a divorce exposed in the press, persistent fraud allegations, and culminating in articles in 2025 urging the public to stop giving money to Theresa Caputo. Was the gift from God she claimed to possess a sophisticated hoax? Or the tragedy of a woman consumed by the pain of others? Theresa Caputo was born on June 10, 1967, in Hicksville, New York, a suburban community on Long Island. In the beginning, her life seemed completely ordinary. Her father, Nicholas Brigandi, was a volunteer firefighter before later working for the Nassau County Department of Public Works. Nothing about her early years appeared unusual, at least not from the outside. But according to Theresa, everything began to change when she was 4 years old, when she started sensing and seeing things that no one else around her could. She said she began receiving images and communicating with the spirits of the dead, experiences that left her frightened and deeply unsettled for years. What she described was not a comforting discovery, but a source of intense fear. The experiences became so overwhelming that she struggled with severe anxiety, and her family searched desperately for answers. Her mother took her to various specialists, hoping someone could explain what was happening. But no one could. The breakthrough came only when Theresa met a spiritual healer named Pat Longo, who told her that these experiences were not signs of illness, but evidence of a gift. Under Longo's guidance, Theresa began to understand what she believed she had been given, and slowly learned how to accept it, control it, and turn it into something she could use to help other people. At first, her world was small. She gave readings only to family members and close friends, keeping her work within a private circle. But the messages she delivered were said to be so precise and personal that her reputation quickly spread by word of mouth. It did not take long before her client list grew into something far bigger, attracting not only ordinary people, but also well-known and influential figures, many of whom were willing to wait years just for the chance to speak with her in private. Everything changed on a much larger scale in 2011. On September 25th of that year, Long Island Medium premiered on TLC and immediately became a breakout success. The reality series followed Theresa through her everyday life, capturing moments when she would suddenly claim to connect with spirits while doing the most ordinary things, whether she was shopping at a grocery store, getting her nails done, or eating at a restaurant. Viewers became fascinated by these spontaneous readings, especially the scenes where she approached complete strangers and delivered intensely personal details about loved ones they had lost. The tears, the hugs, and the visible relief on the faces of those she spoke to gave the show a powerful emotional pull. And over the course of 8 seasons, it became a cultural phenomenon. Theresa's image became part of that appeal. Her signature high blonde hair, her long, carefully decorated nails, and her unmistakable Long Island voice made her instantly recognizable. She built a public persona around being direct, confident, and unapologetically herself. And that persona helped turn her into something more than a television personality. She became a brand, The success of the show opened the door to a much larger business empire, including 4 books. Among them, There's More to Life Than This, A Medium's Story, and Good Grief, Heal Your Soul, Honor Your Loved Ones, and Learn to Live Again, all of which reached the New York Times bestseller list. Her live tours, known as Theresa Caputo Live, The Experience, continued that momentum, selling out theaters and major venues across the United States and the United Kingdom. Fans were willing to pay as much as $400 for a private reading and accept waiting lists that stretched up to 2 years. For millions of people struggling with grief, Theresa Caputo became far more than a psychic. To many, she felt like a source of comfort, a final connection, and, in some cases, the one person who seemed capable of giving them the peace they had been unable to find anywhere else. Even after Long Island Medium ended in 2019, her career showed no real sign of fading. On January 25, 2024, she returned to television with a new series on Lifetime, Theresa Caputo, Raising Spirits, continuing what she described as a mission of healing for people carrying deep emotional loss. And yet, even during the height of that success, the first cracks had already begun to appear beneath the surface. They were easy to miss at the time, hidden behind the glow of fame and the polished image presented on screen. But they were there. Her former husband, Larry Caputo, who had long appeared as the supportive and humorous partner in her public life, later admitted that the pressure of fame and the demands of reality television had slowly worn down their marriage. The show worked hard to present a picture of family stability and happiness. But underneath that image, the strain was growing. Those early fractures widened over time, quietly pointing toward a collapse that would eventually become impossible to hide. As Theresa Caputo's fame spread like a storm, it did not just bring admiration, it also drew the attention of a powerful opposing force, the skeptics. To them, there was no miracle, only psychology, performance, and carefully crafted deception. The most high-profile challenge to her credibility came in 2012, when the investigative news program Inside Edition partnered with Mark Edward, a magician known for exposing paranormal fraud. Together, they launched a covert investigation during one of Theresa's live shows, a carefully planned sting operation designed to test whether her abilities were truly what they seemed. Their approach was methodical. After purchasing tickets, the team began what experts refer to as hot reading. Using the information provided during ticket purchases, they searched through public sources such as Facebook, Twitter, and other online platforms. From there, they gathered detailed personal data about attendees, including names, family connections, information about deceased loved ones, past tragedies, and even recent posts when they arrived at the event. They noticed a pattern that raised serious questions. Audience members with the most publicly available information online often appeared to be placed in the front rows, the prime positions most likely to be selected during the reading. These individuals, knowingly or not, became ideal targets. One moment from the investigation stood out as particularly revealing. During the show, Theresa suddenly claimed she was seeing images of children's clothing. Almost immediately, a woman seated in the front row broke down in tears and confirmed that she had recently posted photos of her deceased child's clothing on Facebook just days earlier. To believers, it felt like an emotional and undeniable connection. But, to the investigators, it looked like clear evidence of prior research. After the Inside Edition report aired, a wave of psychologists and skeptics stepped forward, arguing that Theresa's methods relied on well-known techniques of manipulation. The most commonly cited was cold reading, a strategy built on broad and flexible statements that could apply to almost anyone in a large audience. She might begin with something like sensing a father figure who passed suddenly, or asking if anyone had a meaningful connection to the letter M. From there, she would carefully watch reactions, searching for the smallest signals. A nod, a tearful expression, a shift in posture. Once she identified a responsive individual, she would focus on them, asking questions that subtly encouraged them to provide more information, then weaving those details back into her narrative in a way that created the illusion of insight. Another technique critics pointed to was known as piggybacking. If a statement failed, she did not acknowledge it as incorrect. Instead, she would quickly redirect. If one person denied a connection to something like a blue car, she would immediately open the question to the wider audience, asking if anyone else could relate. In a crowd of hundreds or even thousands, the odds of someone stepping forward were high. In that moment, what began as a miss could be transformed into what looked like a striking success. There were also claims from audience members who had attended recordings of Long Island Medium, who said the show underwent heavy editing. According to these accounts, Theresa would film for hours, delivering a large number of incorrect statements. Those moments, however, were removed. Only the rare hits made it to air, creating a polished and convincing illusion of accuracy. The backlash from the skeptical community only intensified. James Randi, the legendary magician and founder of the James Randi Educational Foundation, known for challenging paranormal claims, awarded Theresa the Pegasus Award in 2012. It was a satirical honor, named after a flying pig, given to those considered to have made the most dubious or deceptive claims of the year. Around the same time, famous illusionist Chris Angel publicly challenged Theresa and other psychics to prove their abilities under controlled scientific conditions for a $1 million prize. Theresa declined to participate. That decision only fueled suspicion. For many critics, it reinforced the belief that she was avoiding a test she could not pass, and the doubts were no longer coming only from professionals. Some former fans who attended her live shows began to speak out, expressing deep disappointment and accusing her of putting on an act. What once appeared to be a flawless image was beginning to fracture in plain view, and those early cracks were now widening into something much more serious, signaling that a full-blown crisis might be just around the corner. The years between 2017 and 2018 marked a devastating turning point, one that unraveled both Theresa Caputo's private life and the carefully crafted image the public had come to believe. In December 2017, she and her husband, Larry Caputo, made a shocking announcement. After 28 years together, they were separating. By 2018, the divorce was finalized. For millions of fans, the news felt like a betrayal of everything they had been shown. For years, Long Island Medium had painted the Caputo family as strong, loving, and unbreakable. Larry had always appeared as the patient, humorous husband, the steady presence who supported Theresa and her so-called gift without hesitation. That image collapsed almost overnight. In interviews that followed, Theresa admitted that the two had simply grown apart, describing a slow emotional distance that she was still grieving years later. Larry eventually moved to Los Angeles to begin a new chapter of his life, creating even more distance between them. And with that separation came a question that many could not ignore. How could someone who claimed to read the deepest emotions of strangers and connect with the dead fail to see the breakdown of her own marriage coming? For many, that contradiction shook their faith in her abilities. At the same time, criticism of her work grew louder and more relentless. Journalists began sharing stories about receiving emails meant for Theresa, messages filled with raw grief from people who were desperate for answers. These were not casual fans. They were people in pain. A mother mourning her child, a sister grieving a brother lost in a tragic accident. They wrote with genuine belief that Theresa could deliver a final message from beyond. What these stories revealed was a darker side of the psychic industry. While thousands of people were struggling with unimaginable loss, Theresa was building a multi-million-dollar empire around that very desperation. Then, in 2025, a major media explosion delivered one of the most damaging blows to her reputation. Philly Mag published a blunt and deeply critical investigative article titled, "Don't Give Theresa Caputo Your Money." Reporter Victor Fiorillo attended 2 of her live shows firsthand, documenting what he described as clear patterns of deception. In his conclusion, he did not hold back, labeling Caputo a fraud. Fiorillo detailed how she relied on educated guesses, reading body language, and asking vague, leading questions to guide her audience into revealing information themselves. He also pointed out that strict rules at her events prevented any form of recording. A restriction, he argued, was intentional, designed to hide the numerous failed guesses and prevent outside analysis that could expose inconsistencies in her performances. That same year, the website The List released a widely circulated article titled 8 Signs Long Island Medium is Fake. The piece compiled a range of accusations from multiple sources, building a broader case against her credibility. Among the claims were reports that production staff gathered personal information from participants before filming, as well as testimonies from clients who said her private readings were wildly inaccurate. Television host Andy Cohen recalled an on-air moment where Caputo appeared to fish for information from him, but failed completely. Radio icon Howard Stern reportedly went even further, banning her from his show after what he described as unreasonable demands and unprofessional behavior. As if the situation were not already chaotic enough, a new problem began to emerge: impersonators. Fake accounts claiming to be Theresa Caputo flooded social media, targeting vulnerable fans and promising private readings in exchange for money. Theresa publicly warned her audience about these scams, but the damage was already done. Ironically, the situation only deepened public skepticism, not just toward her, but toward the entire psychic industry. It raised an uncomfortable question that lingered in the background. Was any of it real? Or was it all part of a larger illusion? Throughout her entire career, Theresa Caputo has consistently refused to demonstrate her abilities under controlled scientific conditions. That refusal has only strengthened the argument of her critics, who believe she avoids such tests because the truth would not hold up. What was once seen by many as something extraordinary, even miraculous, has now become closely associated with doubt, deception, and exploitation. The reputation she spent years building has not just weakened, it has gone into a steep and very public decline. Behind the glittering outfits, the signature blonde hair, and the endless accusations of deception, Theresa Caputo describes her life as a constant emotional burden. She insists that her ability is not something she can switch on and off at will. Instead, she says she is always surrounded by what she calls a connected energy coming from the spirit world, something that never truly leaves her alone. According to Theresa, this connection is not just emotional, it is physical. She has described painful sensations that she believes come from the spirits she claims to communicate with. A tightness in her throat when a spirit has something left unsaid. A heavy pressure on her chest when she connects to someone who died of heart disease. Intense headaches when a message feels urgent and overwhelming. These experiences, she says, are part of the cost of what she does. In interviews and in her books, she explains that carrying the grief, regret, and unresolved emotions of both the living and the dead leaves her exhausted, both mentally and physically. She has said that if she does not perform readings and release that energy, she begins to feel disconnected from herself. For Theresa, helping others is not just a career choice. It is something she believes she must do in order to maintain her own balance. And yet, that same burden reveals a deeply ironic personal tragedy. Theresa Caputo has built her entire career on helping others find closure after loss. She has witnessed tears of relief, heard heartfelt gratitude, and offered comfort to thousands of grieving families. But when it comes to her own life, closure has remained out of reach. Her divorce from Larry, after nearly 3 decades together. Left a wound she has openly admitted she is still trying to heal. At the same time, the constant attacks from the media and skeptics have only added to that weight. Every critical article, every accusation, every public doubt has chipped away not just at her reputation, but at her sense of self. She seems caught in a cycle with no clear escape. The more she helps others, the more famous she becomes, and the more famous she becomes, the more intense the criticism grows, leaving her increasingly drained. It exposes a painful contradiction. The woman who brings peace to others appears unable to find peace for herself. Another aspect of her claims has also stirred controversy, especially her views on haunted places. When asked about ghosts or haunted houses, Theresa offers a softer explanation. She does not describe them as evil spirits or harmful entities. Instead, she believes these are simply the lingering energies of loved ones trying to get the attention of those they care about. For believers, this idea feels comforting, even reassuring. But for skeptics, it raises more questions. By removing the concept of something clearly defined like a malicious spirit, she shifts the discussion into something far more abstract, something rooted in energy and emotion. And in doing so, critics argue, she places her claims beyond the reach of scientific testing or verification, despite the mounting scandals, the very public divorce, and the relentless criticism. Theresa Caputo has remained standing in a way that many find surprising. She continues to tour across the country, filling theaters with loyal fans who still believe in her completely. For them, she is more than a public figure. She is a bridge to the people they have lost, the tears they have shed, the comfort they have felt, and the messages they believe they received are, in their eyes, undeniable proof that transcends any criticism or investigation. At the same time, it is impossible to ignore how deeply her reputation has been damaged. What was once seen as a symbol of hope and healing has become something far more complicated. Today, her image is inseparable from questions about cold reading, prior research, and the possibility that grief itself has been turned into a business. She now stands at a fragile boundary between genuine belief and blind faith, between true empathy and calculated manipulation. In the end, Theresa Caputo's story leaves behind a question with no clear answer. Is she a misunderstood figure? A woman with a real ability living in a world that demands proof it cannot provide? Attacked by those who refuse to believe in anything beyond science? Or is she something else entirely? A skilled performer and businesswoman who recognized that grief is one of the most powerful forces in human life and built an empire around it? The truth may lie somewhere between those two extremes, or it may remain a mystery that is never fully resolved. Her legacy will always be seen through two completely different lenses. To some, she is the person who gave them one last moment of connection and peace. To others, she represents a carefully constructed illusion built on vulnerability and loss. In the end, her story is not just about a psychic. It is about us, about our need to believe, our fear of losing the people we love, and the price we are willing to pay for even the smallest sense of hope. So, the question remains, did you ever believe in Theresa Caputo's messages? Or have you always seen something else behind the tears?